You're on a whaling ship in the middle of the Pacific, and something the size of a school bus just turned to face you. You watch it. It's not diving, it's not fleeing, it's staring straight at your ship on purpose. This is the whaleship Essex out of Nantucket, 1820, and that whale is about to sink the ship you're standing on. First mate Owen Chase, 23 years old, sharp-jawed, already soaked in sweat, freezes at the rail. He's seen whales charge boats before. He's never seen one charge the ship. 20 men are on board. 3 small whaleboats hang at the sides. That's it. That's all they've got. So what happens when an animal built like a battering ram decides your ship is the enemy? You're about to find out, because it hits. Hard. The whole ship shudders like it ran aground. Except there's no land for 1,000 miles. Chase runs for the pumps. Water's already pouring in. This wasn't supposed to happen. Whales run. Whales don't hunt you back. Except this one turns around and comes back. Chase watches it build speed, faster than any whale he's ever timed. And this time it hits the bow dead on, full speed, like it's aiming. The ship doesn't shudder this time, it staggers. 20 men, 1 sinking ship, and an 85-foot whale still out there somewhere. Chase makes a call in about 30 seconds that the rest of his life will hinge on. Abandon ship, grab what you can. There's no time to argue. In under 10 minutes, the Essex rolls onto her side and goes still. 20 men, 3 boats, 2,000 miles from the nearest scrap of land anyone's sure of. And here's the part almost nobody expects: this actually happened. This story would later half inspire a novel you've definitely heard of. But the real one is stranger and much worse. Because right now, floating in the wreckage, Chase has a decision to make. And it's the wrong one. The nearest islands, the Marquesas, are close, about a week's sail. But the crew has heard rumors. Cannibals, they say. So they choose the other way. They point the boats toward South America instead, 3,000 miles away. It is, to put it gently, the longer route. Within days, the water rations are already running low. The bread they saved is soaked through with seawater and turning to salt-crusted mush. 20 men set out. Every single one of them is about to find out what the ocean actually costs. 3 weeks in, and the boats haven't sunk. But the men inside them are disappearing anyway. Skin blistering, lips cracking, tongues swelling from thirst. And then, land. Real land. The Marquesas' quieter cousin. A speck called Henderson Island. For a moment, everyone thinks they're saved. They're not. Henderson has almost no food, and even less fresh water. Within a week, they've picked the island nearly bare. 3 men choose to stay behind on Henderson rather than get back in the boats. The other 17 climb back into the boats, back onto 3,000 miles of nothing. Chase is in command of his own boat now, separated from Pollard's. Weeks pass. The food runs out completely. Not low, out. And this is the point in the story where things stop being about sailing. The first man dies quietly, in his sleep, from nothing but exhaustion and hunger. The crew does something that no one on land ever wants to imagine doing. They don't talk about it much. They don't have to. Everyone already knows what comes next. In Pollard's boat, miles away, the same horror is happening, with a crueler twist. The men start drawing lots, to decide who dies next and who has to do it. One of the names drawn belongs to Pollard's own teenage cousin. Pollard reportedly offers to take his place. His cousin says no. We won't describe what happens next. You already know. And it's the true cost of that number. 20 men, now shrinking fast. Back on Chase's boat, the survivors are barely holding a thought together. Weeks stretch past the 90-day mark since the whale first hit the ship. 90 days in an open boat. No modern lifeboat would last that. These men are still moving. Chase scans the horizon every single morning out of pure habit now, not hope. And then one morning, habit pays off. There's something out there that isn't water. A ship. A real ship. Not imagined, not a mirage. A ship. Chase doesn't have the strength to shout. He can barely stand. But the ship sees them anyway. 95 days after the whale attacked, Owen Chase is finally pulled onto a deck that isn't sinking. Of the 20 men who left the Essex that day, only a handful are left to tell it. But Pollard's boat is still out there somewhere, and what happens when they find it is even worse than this. 5 days later, another ship spots a second tiny boat, barely afloat. Inside it, 2 men. Not 17, not 10, 2. One of them is Captain George Pollard, so thin his own crew almost don't recognize him. Pollard is found clutching the bones of dead crewmen. He won't let go of them. He's not hiding it. He's not ashamed. He's just past caring what it looks like. Later, when he's asked about it back on land, he answers without flinching. He says simply, "I have no reason to be ashamed. It's what any man would have done." Nobody in that room argues with him. Nobody feels qualified to. So, of the 20 men who left the Essex, how many actually made it home? 8. 8 men out of 20. That's the number. 20 men set out, 8 came home. The 3 left behind on Henderson Island. Somehow, they're found alive too, months later. So the real final count climbs to 11. But the boats themselves only carried 8 home. Owen Chase goes home to a wife who thought she was already a widow. And here's the twist nobody saw coming. Nantucket sends Pollard right back out to sea. A whaling island runs on whaling captains. Sentiment doesn't pay the harbour fees. His second command lasts less than a year before that ship wrecks too. After that, Nantucket decides Pollard is done at sea. For good. He spends the rest of his life on land, working as the island's night watchman. Every year, on the anniversary of the wreck, he locks himself away and fasts, alone. Chase, meanwhile, writes it all down. Every day, every death, every decision. His account becomes the only real record anyone has of what happened out there. Decades later, a young writer named Herman Melville gets his hands on a copy. He's at sea himself, on another whaling ship when he reads it. And somewhere in that reading, an idea starts forming about a whale that hunts back. That idea becomes Moby-Dick. The whale even gets a name this time. But here's the part the novel leaves out. The real whale never got hunted back. It just swam away. Nobody ever confirmed what happened to it. It simply disappears from the record. Which means the single most destructive whale in maritime history got away clean. Pollard, for his part, never blamed it. He blamed the choice to sail south instead of west. And that choice raises the question that still haunts historians today. If they'd sailed for the Marquesas instead, a week away, would anyone have died at all? The islands they feared were never as dangerous as the rumors claimed. 20 men chose the safer-sounding option. It turned out to be the deadlier one. That's the twist no one expects. Fear of the unknown killed more men than the whale did. The whale gets maybe 10 minutes of the story. The ocean gets 95 days. 20 men set out that day. Only 8 came home in those boats. If you've made it this far, you already know this channel doesn't do the tidy version of history. So if that's your kind of story, subscribe. A new animated history documentary every Saturday. Because this wasn't even the strangest wreck the Pacific ever produced. Owen Chase spent his last years wealthy, respected, and hoarding food in his attic. He couldn't stop. Even decades later, the hunger never fully let go of him. He died believing, until the end, that starvation was always one bad decision away. Pollard died on land too, decades later, still fasting every single anniversary. He never captained a ship again after that second wreck. Not once. The whale, as far as anyone knows, kept swimming, somewhere out past all of it. No name, no grave, no account written about him. Just the one recorded fact. He hit a ship twice, on purpose, and it worked. 20 men went into those boats. 8 came home. That number never changes, no matter how many times you tell this story. Every version of it, the novel, the film, the campfire retelling, starts from that same 20. And every version ends the same way too. 8 men walking off 3 boats. History doesn't usually let you pick the ending. This one, everyone already knows, which is maybe why it stayed famous for 200 years. Not because a whale sank a ship, because of what the men did after. And somewhere out in the Pacific, that story isn't even the strangest one still waiting. There's a ship that vanished with everyone still on board and left the lifeboats untouched. There's a crew that came back with a captain's log and nothing else that made sense. Next week, we go looking for that ship, and what didn't come back with it. Same time, same tide. See you then.